Welcome to episode 164 of the Lone Hockey Podcast, where today we're going to be talking about some standouts in last night's matchup between Toronto and Dallas in Dallas. And so, really good matchup. You had obviously Matthews, Marner, and Nylander together. And I believe the last time they were together on a line was in Dallas or playing against Dallas, one of the two. And so it was really interesting, really intriguing to see those three playing a line once again. I felt like the dynamic and the skill set and the hockey sense all of them really process the game at a somewhat similar level. I would say Austin's probably the guy that stands out the most when it comes to that, but guys who can just they can make plays to each other, they can find each other in space, they move off the puck really well, and the ebbs and flows of that line are just really, really good overall. And they're just really talented at what they do, obviously. And so last night, Nylander, we'll start with some standouts in Toronto. Nylander scored twice, one of the goals off being a dish from Matthews. He had a really nice one of his goals, and I believe it was his first. The goal was really nice because as Ottinger was going down into the butterfly and going down in that reverse VH position, Nylander recognized that he could shoot high, so he went opposite. He shot high on him, and there's plenty of space there to shoot, plenty of space available, and it was an easy goal. And I didn't see the second one, but I know that just Nylander played a really possession-oriented game and a ton of flow in his game, a ton of control over his game, ton of poise in his game. That's how he usually plays, and that's when he plays at his best, is how he controls the game with his poise, especially circling the offensive zone and how he's able to manage pucks there and really manage the tempo there. I feel like Nylander's a guy you really notice in those circumstances at being able to control pace and manipulate possession. Nick Robertson playing against his brother had a really good game, 2 points in this game, a goal and an assist. I noticed the speed, the checking ability. They had that line of Robertson with McMahon and Domi, and they were really rolling yesterday. And I believe that was the Leafs' third line, but it was playing really well. They were complementing each other really well. They were creating with speed. They were creating havoc. They were checking well. That whole line was really noticeable. And I felt like a lot of those guys were really standing out in terms of their ability to not only check, but really grind Dallas down deep in the offensive zone. And so that line was really good. That line was also really good at getting interior. I felt like Max Domi was really good against his former team at being able to get interior on defensemen, and he's not afraid. He's got that mentality where he's not afraid to charge guys, go directly at him, and try to create offense. And he did that yesterday. He ended up with a goal, and he was noticeable from an all-around perspective. Actually, like one of the guys, one of which being a non-traditional guy, Simon Benoit, a guy who plays a physical, stingy defensive game and hard to play against in the sense of how he can shut you down one on one. I don't necessarily notice him a ton offensively. I don't notice him a ton in transition. He's more of an old school, I like to move pucks north style player where he's a guy that is not heavily reliant in transition, not heavily reliant on gaps or angles or stuff like that. He's just physical and he's in your face. And some guys are like that. Some defensemen are like that in this league, and they play that role really well. And I feel like he's one of those guys more noticeable in the sense of yesterday that was doing a really good job of that. He was really frustrating Dallas's opposing forwards, and he was really frustrating them and forcing them to play in the outside, which obviously teams and players don't want to do, but they did against him. And then on Dallas's side, Evgeny Dadonov, I liked his game. I noticed the checking ability to compete, the tenacity, the ability to really work down low deep in the zone. And he's noticeable as a checker. He's noticeable with his speed, and he's noticeable at being able to create a lot of different ways of havoc, at being able to force turnovers and being able to strip pucks free, get underneath sticks, get through the hands of guys. Like there's just a lot of elements ingrained in his forechecking game that allow him to really control possession and be able to retrieve 50-50 pucks. Colin Blackwell had a goal in this game. I really liked his game, similar to Donov in the sense of how, and Domi in the sense where he's not afraid to get interior and he's not afraid to drive the net. So he had a lot of net drives coming from the outside lane on in yesterday, and he was noticeable from that perspective. And I really liked his ability to get to the net on a regular basis. Wyatt Johnston had one of the better showings I've seen from him so far throughout the season. I feel like he's in a bit of a slump right now, and ever since he was drafted, he's really only taken steps up. So this is probably the major first big setback in his career thus far in terms of NHL play. But he was good yesterday. I really liked how he was controlling the walls, really using his cutback ability to avoid guys one on one. He was shifty, he was using his feet, he was playing on his toes. He was active with the puck on his stick as a playmaker. I felt like there were a lot of ozone play and ozone possession elements in his game that were allowing him to control play, and that was a really good sign to see. Hopefully, he has a better stretch down the second half of the season, and hopefully, he can continue to get better at that as well. And then the Stars rookie defenseman who made his NHL debut the other night, Leon Bixell, and just a physical, imposing defender who is not going to easily allow you to get to the net. And he, I believe, is 6'7". He is really in control of his frame. He's in control of his stick. He's hard to play against one on one. He can really box you out at the net, and that's one of his best attributes as a defenseman, his ability to box you out and maintain goal side positioning at the net because he's got that sizable advantage and that reach advantage. So that really allows him to be able to control how he wants defenders to go, and he can steer guys away from the net as a result of that. On the puck, he's not a flashy player and not a flashy puck mover, but he plays similar to Asa Lindell in the sense, just a little bit taller. And I could really see him down the stretch continue to play with this team. I feel like he's good enough to play in the NHL now, and he's got the size, he's got the ability to maintain goal side positioning. He's steady defending the rush, he's steady with his stick, and he's poised. And I feel like those attributes have helped him because he's played pro when he was drafted too, over in Europe. And so he's going to be a really interesting one to watch. I'm really curious to see how he progresses throughout the rest of the year. If he stays with the Stars or if he goes down to Texas again and what that situation ends up like. But yeah, he's been really intriguing to watch in the start of his NHL career. And I envision that there's going to be a lot more in store from him that is untapped right now, but we're going to see a lot more from him long term if he continues to play in Dallas. I feel like, just from what I've seen, I feel like he's a player that the coaching staff is really going to like in Dallas because not just because of his size and how he stands out, literally, but of his actual ability. Like he can shut rushes down, he can shut play down, he can play a little bit of a two-way game. He's a steady offensive presence. Like there's so many attributes where he's not going to be a point producing defenseman in the NHL thus far, but he's going to be a guy that's going to be a very, very steady, stay-at-home style defenseman for them. So you can play him in your bottom four too. You don't even have to play him in a top four role because he's probably not expecting that. He's probably just expecting to play so far and work his way up. So you don't necessarily have to rely on him in a top four role and expect him to adapt to that right away. But if he plays consistently and plays like he did not only yesterday, but before that, that's a really good sign for his development, how he could progress in the near future as well.